he was there.
Oh, we'll be in just a minute. I'll come back to you.
Oh, no, he doesn't make sure everybody.
No, Emily.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's working.
Are you ready? Who is that? No, it's not me. Mine's not on. You good? 6 o'clock, I'll call this meeting to order. First thing is please silence your cell phones, including me. All right. Tonight, our invocation will be done by Commissioner Wilkins, and our Pledge of Allegiance will be done by Commissioner Wilkins.
Be ever so ready. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, our God, we thank you, Father God, for just another day's journey. We thank you, O God, for the grace that you show us and the mercy that you give us. Father God, we ask you to be with us on this evening, Father God. And among this board, Father God, as we make decisions for this community, give us wisdom, Father God, and give us understanding. In all we do, we shall never forget to give you the honor, the praise, and the glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Can we stand, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If I remember correctly, we have excused Commissioner Way from tonight's meeting. So, Madam Clerk, if you'll do the roll call, please.
Got it. Commissioner Wilkins.
Here.
Commissioner Albright.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Kaczynski.
Present.
Commissioner Gleason.
Present.
Mayor Miller.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move down to item 4, approval of agenda. I want to add a closed session meeting into tonight's, which we will do at the end of our regular session. Is there any other new things that need to come and be on the agenda? Not hearing any, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved. There's triple.
Let's see, Mayor Pro Tem made the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0. All right, we move to 5, which is discussion items. First item is 5A, monthly financial report ending February 29th. City Finance Director.
Tonight I bring before you the February financial summary report. Same format as always, with the addition of the request from the previous meeting where you all requested for the rental fees, the revenues on the rentals at the community center. So you will see those items listed, which will include the gym, the event room, the meeting room, multi-purpose rental, shelter rental participant registration fees, and the membership fees. And other is everything that's included in sales and services that are not part of the recreation revenues. So as you see, the general fund revenue is 69% collected at the end of February, and we are right down even with the general fund expenditures, where we're sitting at 69% so far in February. If you come down to stormwater, total revenues collected 45%. Stormwater expenditures, we're at 48%. Power bill, the revenues, we're sitting at 116%. Being all of the power bill that we can collect for the year outside of interest. And power bill expenditures at 70%. So if you have any questions regarding the please do that.
Excuse me. I have a question. Commissioner Gleason. It could be normal
their revenue year-to-date from sales tax and use taxes, is that normal that it's that much of a difference between?
Yeah, because, as you know, sales taxes are 2 months behind. So at February, we just received, December's collection. So this February is showing from beginning of the year up until December.
So looking at last year, is this pretty much in that line?
Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
So stormwater revenue, we budgeted $299. We're actually ahead of ourselves on that one, by 110% with the stormwater fees. Is that correct?
Yeah, so 31,000 collected more than what was budgeted.
Okay.
So going forward, you're gonna see slight increase because you receive more of your collections for Avalon and stormwater from between like September through January, when you receive your bulk of the collection. So going forward, you'll see a slight decrease in what we will receive going forward, but at the end of February, we had exceeded what we budgeted.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Not hearing any, thank you, sir.
Yes.
All right. We move to 5B, Budget Workshop Update. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners, good evening. This is the first of 3 board workshops scheduled for March, April, and May. The first slide I'd like to take you is the budget calendar, just as a reminder. February 10th, you had your retreat, to begin the process and give us some directions, give staff directions on, how you'd like to see this year, progress. So there's been, thank you, ma'am.
Sorry.
There have been, the departments have prepared their budgets. They have presented them to, the finance director and myself. To date, we haven't made any adjustments or cuts in those. We want to get the board's input on that before we do. I will begin the presentation and then I'll be followed by Lee Faines, finance director, shortly, halfway through the presentation. So, the next slide I'd like to go to, just very briefly, is the City Hall renovation project. We've got some instructions and directions from the board to include the emergency generator, which we've done. We moved it up 2 years to 25. And we've got the PD, police department has a shelter in this project since it's here on campus for an LED, shelter for the 2 boards that we've got from, TDA, so a shelter to put them under. So that's the 2 changes that you see here. One is the $50,000 fuel gas generator, and the other one is a shelter which includes permits, footings, anchors, and all the things that go along with that. The total project cost exceeds the $250,000 grant by $118,720 for a total project cost of $368,720. And again, the finance director will get in how these options for funding as we get later into the presentation. I'd also like to go to the next slide, which is it is a part of the 5 years, but we've taken the other 4 years off just to make it a little bit simpler. So we're focusing on FY25 with this. There have been several items have been added to the list. There's been an adjustment in the schedule. Some design work has been backed up 1 year. There's been some minor adjustments. A couple of things that have been added to this list are replacement of deck rails at the community center near the senior center, where the senior center overlooks the Battle Roberts Field. There are treated wood rails out there that have to be pressure washed and cleaned and stained. And the thought would be of putting the PVC rails that look so much better, the white to right, the cleaner, they're easier to maintain than having to deal with maintaining those old wooden deck rails over the years. The other thing that was added was a Hustler 54-inch Super Z mower for ground maintenance. You remember the skid steer, the track skid steer. That's a mouthful. This is another attachment that will go along with that. It's a cutter, a bush hog, something that'll be able to get into the brush, weeds, the sidewalks, and get that cut back. Also added, is 20 portable radios and 4 mobile radios for the police department. As you may recall, all of the radios that the police department have are going to expire January 25. So we've got to get them all replaced. So there's another 140,000 added there. That's the new items, which brings that total now up to 1,124,007. That's just a quick review. We've incorporated the comments, we've moved some things around, we've, made some adjustments to board requested, like the generator and some of those things. The next thing I would like to do is do a preliminary overview of each one of the department requests. And again, no cuts have been made to date.
Mike, before we go on to that, is there any questions on the items that we have done up to this point? Commissioner Albright.
Mike, are those radios for the police officers, are those the handheld radios?
20 of them are handheld and the other 4 are mobile vehicle radios.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I thought we did the radios already. I know we learned all about the Motorola story a while ago, that the radios were gonna expire.
Yeah, that's dispatch, that's the console that's in dispatch, that's not the forward.
Okay, just wanna make sure I'm clear on that.
Chief, before you leave, what do we mean by expire?
So, we learned late last year, after we'd already submitted our budget, that they're going to a new system, they're upgrading the towers and everything. So every, police department, anybody that uses the Viper system is gonna have to upgrade their radios because they're not gonna work on the new system.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And this was something Chief King was planning 2 years out. I remember having that conversation with him some time ago.
Because of the 5G, it said they won't be compatible with 5G everywhere.
All right, sir. Mr. Gleason, any questions? Thank you, Mike. Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Wilkins.
We will not be able to use for anything, not even talk to each other, they won't work on. Maybe, from talking to Motorola, you can't use for anything, they'll just be a paperweight.
All right, we're gonna move on to the department.
I did it.
All right. What I'm gonna do is walk you through each one of these lines. Overall, the 24 budget, total budget was $5,553,712. The FY 25 request at present is $6,594,979, or an increase of $1,041,267. So, starting with general government, what's in general government? You can see that far right column says $20,500 over last year's request. There's 15 4-foot LED replacement Christmas wreaths in this for Main Street for $12,000. There's 62 30 by 60 spring banners with hardware in this request for $8,500. And we're gonna follow up on the city emergency operation plan, which I know years ago was something Terry was working on, and it never ended up getting, complete for whatever reason. So, Butler did theirs last year for about 16,000, 17,000. So we're asking for 20 to do that this year, emergency operating plan. All right, I'm gonna move on to governing body. There's a decrease in governing body overall of $40,481. There are some non-recurring requests in this year's budget. The municipal election, which we just had, was $16,000. That's not going to recur. The Veterans Monument that the board approved for 22.5 has been purchased, and that is not a recurring item. iPads, for the board, 7,200 is not a recurrable item as well. One thing that I would like to recommend is a 5% cost of living adjustment for the 3 legislative boards. For whatever reason, that wasn't part of the adjustment for the entire employee family last year, employees only, and those 3 boards are paid stipends or an amount, so it's, it equates to $20 per meeting for the mayor, $15.58 for the mayor pro tem, and $14.42 for the commissioners. This also includes the 8 planning board members for $2.50 per meeting more, and 5 board of adjustment members, $2.50 per meeting more, for a total of $2,901 to make that adjustment. If you have a question, stop me, otherwise I'm just gonna roll right on through all of them.
Commissioner, Mayor Pro Tem.
So, Mike, I don't think you were city manager at the time, but, the governing board was brought up to match the governing bodies of the municipalities around us 2 years ago. And Mr. Frangos, you were acting city manager at the time.
July 1st, 2020.
Right. And if there's an increase at this point for the Board of Commissioners, I know that planning and adjustments were not increased at all back then, but it will put us as the highest paid commissioners and mayor of the 3 municipalities in Granville County. And considering we have less population than the other 2 municipalities in Granville County, I don't feel very comfortable with that. I've checked Butner and I've checked Oxford, and I can give you the figures, but we will be the highest paid governing board in the county of the municipalities, not including STEM, of course, but higher than Butner and higher than Oxford that have many more citizens than we do. So one of the positions right now is higher than one of those municipalities, and I'm okay with an increase for Board of Adjustments and Planning Board, because I don't know when they've ever had an increase at all. I don't recall that there ever has been in the years that I've been here, but I don't feel that this board needs an increase. I know it's not a lot of money, but that's just my opinion.
Mr. Wilkins.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'm the one to ask for the request simply for inflation adjustment. If the other municipalities don't want to do that, that's on them. I'm asking for our board.
I didn't get that.
You didn't hear what he said. Could you repeat that?
I said, I'm the one that asked for inflation adjustment for the board. If the other municipalities don't want to make that adjustment, that's on them. I'm looking out for our board. And it's not a lot of money.
Mr. Gleason.
I kind of agree with Georgiana about our board did get a substantial increase a couple of years ago. I would like to see more of this money, having served on a planning board, where the planning board at the time when I was on it, and I'm sure that Mr. Frankos would agree, we were meeting sometimes 2 times a month, and people were getting $50. I'd rather see the boards get a $20 a month increase and eat the 2% for the my
Yeah.
I know because I sit on the county planning board, it's $40 a month. I don't think there's anything wrong about leading by example, but I will be happy to do whatever the board would like me to do.
When would these decisions, as we go further to adjustments on these figures, be appropriate for us to?
Any direction or instruction you'd like me to take, because when I come back again, it's going to be a completely readjusted budget proposal.
Okay.
Based on what you feed us back today.
May I, Mayor Pro Tem?
So, Commissioner Gleason was very kind in saying it was a substantial raise. It was a substantial raise. It was 50%. And I can promise you that nobody in this room has ever gotten a 50% increase. If anybody has, please raise your hand and jump up and down, because you probably absolutely deserve it. I feel kind of guilty, 2 years after we were given a substantial raise like that, taking any more money. But again, the planning board, the board of adjustments, I've never served on either one of them, but if they've never had an increase, and I will defer to Commissioner Gleason's experience with them, absolutely, I would give up my percentage to give them more money instead of.
When did you start on the planning board?
One other thing, I started on the planning board, I think, in 2011. And in 2011, planning board members got $50 a meeting, whether there was a meeting or not. Then at some point, the board decided, no. If they cancel a meeting, they don't get the money. So I would like to see, if you don't raise their pay, they get $50 a month for serving on the planning board, because they are at the call of the planning department, and if there is a need for a special meeting, I guess they would get the $50, but to go back to the $600 or whatever it was to serve on it for a year.
Well, I was on the Board of Adjustment probably 15 years before you were on the planning board, and they were getting, because Mr. Frangos was there then too, and we were only getting $50 a meeting. In fact, we had, Harold Jenkins was chairman, and we were going to do a little ceremony when he retired, and the current mayor at that time did not want to spend $50 per member for us to attend a meeting in order to just celebrate the 20, 30 years Harold Jenkins had been on the planning board. So my suggestion would be that to make it an even number, we bump up theirs from $50 to $60 a meeting.
Not a meeting monthly. Not their fault if the planning board meeting is canceled.
Well, you're talking about $60 monthly, even if they meet 2-3 times a month. Yeah, that's why I would suggest for
We get
meetings.
paid a flat fee whether we meet 1, 2, or 5 times a month. Special meetings on Sunday.
Yeah, but we're not them.
Yeah, when we did it was per month. If you had 2 meetings a month, you still got $50.
Right, ours was per meeting, if I remember correctly. Mr. Frangos, was it per meeting?
I can't recall, honestly, sir. I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it was, because it was because we hit the point where we were not meeting on a regular basis, because the board took a lot of the authority away from the Board of Adjustments. The Board of Adjustments was getting paid per meeting, because we go months and not meet at all. So anyway, that's my recommendation, bump the pay to $10 per meeting and go from there. I'll entertain any other, or don't agree, or do agree, or is that?
I'm good with that.
Do we have to do it in the legislative meeting or?
Well, what he'll do is, correct me if I'm wrong, he will make the adjustments to show us what the figures are, and then when we bring the total budget in, you can vote for it or against it.
$60 a meeting for the planning and the board of adjustment, and nothing for the commissioners.
No. Because let's face it, even if we got a raise, we aren't paid enough to do this job. If we're doing it for the money anyway. All right, sir, that got you covered.
I will move right on to city manager. There's an increase there of $34,852. $3,500 of that is an incidental increase in expenses for training, travel, office supplies, et cetera. That position starts, Mr. Jamie Oxendine starts April the 1st, with the county. When I checked in with the county to see if they were gonna make any adjustments or changes in that, they said just a slight adjustment, which is in the contract. It's a $40,000 agreement with us, but we also have to pay whatever incidentals that come up, and Karina suggested I elevate that just a little bit, so that's why that went up $3,000. The managers and executive assistant salary adjustments and benefits from the 3 performance evaluations. The board gave me an evaluation, they increased, made an adjustment in my salary, but there was no budget amendment done because I felt we could get through this fiscal year and me stay within the city manager's budget without having to come and ask for more money to make that adjustment. The other item in that list is 2 times per year, CREEDMOOR hosts the Carter Council of Government City County Managers Breakfast, which we rotate between counties. That's the only thing I've got listed in there for highlighted items.
Mr. City Manager,
Yes, sir.
your contract isn't gonna last much longer. Have we looked into what we're gonna do for a replacement?
I recall the board asking me to see if I could find some interested parties or the right person for the job. So I've reached out, reached out some feelers. I've talked to several people. I've got a year and a half left on the contract that I'm in right now with the board.
So if, we find somebody that we need to establish a position for that person if they come in ahead of time.
It just depends on how much transition time they're gonna need to leave where they are and how much they need to get here. I think that could be best for when we get closer to knowing.
Plus probably could add it to next year's budget.
And hopefully we'll have a couple of people identified that can come in and the board can identify, feel good about it.
I just want to make sure budget-wise we're prepared for if we need to bring them in early or not.
But we're not putting any money in the budget to do anything.
Well, we can do it at the next budget because that'll be a little closer. Okay, thank you.
All right, moving right on to clerk. It's not in this number right now, but the clerk's budget only went up $546. But what is moving is the Granicus agreement for $12,000 is moving from the Administrative Services Department over to the clerk's office, so there will be an increase there. It's just not in these numbers. At some point, we just have to stop, and these are the numbers we're talking about. And as those numbers change and evolve, these items will be updated. The other item is a computer tablet for out-of-office meetings and conferences for the clerk as well as the finance director, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, later, I'm sorry. Administrative services, increased $77,414. Part of that is Granicus, of course, I mentioned moving to the clerk's budget. The VC3 IT contract, which, as you know, went up $50,000. The cable to fiber optic with Spectrum is expected at $5,400. A $700 increase for postage. We're still waiting on the numbers for the property and liability insurance increase, which we haven't received yet. And across all departments in city government, Elcher's employee contributions is increasing from 12.85 to 13.6 for 0.75% for city employees and 14.10 to 15.10 for law enforcement employees. So I don't have the dollar amount. You remember what that might have been, please? We were talking about this morning.
Yes, so the actual dollar amount is a $35,000 increase to the budget.
Okay. So that's a mandated increase from the North Carolina League of Municipalities. That's an adjustment we'll have to make. All right, I'm going to move on to city attorney. The original memorandum of understanding, and this is only reflective of $2,000 increase. The original memorandum of understanding with Rhodes Law Firm was entered 8 years ago on March 25th, 2016. Compensation for services continue to increase annually. July the 1st, 2024, a new rate goes into effect from $800 to $850 a month for regular board meetings. The hourly rate for all the other meetings, which are the work sessions, board work sessions, planning board, board of adjustment, is increasing from $207 to $215 per hour. In 2023, we budgeted $60,000 on this contract and spent $51,120. In 2024, we budgeted $60,000, and the year-end projection right now is just under $57,000, so we're still in our 60 range. The FY 2025 is recommended at 62 for the increases that are mentioned above. You may recall a couple of years back, it was at an $80,000 line, which I adjusted down last year, or recommended adjustment. So, there's options that the board has on the table to leave the agreement, the memorandum as is, renegotiate it with the legal firm, or put it out on an RFQ. So that's a couple options the board has with that item. Finance, increase only $3,342 for, this is the other computer tablet I mentioned, for out-of-office meetings and conferences and things the finance director will be attending, and training and travel for him to be able to attend the fall, spring, summer, North Carolina general finance officers conferences that are scattered about the state, from the west to the east and central North Carolina.
We got a week cheap with the finance director.
And
Got a week cheap with the finance director.
I've heard him talk about those conferences, he interacts with everybody from Butler and Knoxville and everywhere else. So, anyway, the police department, on the other hand, is a $250,000 increase, like a truck.
Stole it from Lee.
So, Troy needs 8 rifles, for his officers, they're $1,000 apiece. He needs some ammunition, believe it or not. We didn't give him any last year. He had 2 years in reserve, where the other chief had squirreled some ammunition, so we were okay with last year, but he needs $6,000 in ammunition for pistols and rifles. 7 ballistic vests, 2 new and 5 replacement vests, to protect our officers. Uniforms, $18,000 in uniforms. 8 license plate readers has been requested. That's the readers that come into town and they automatically scan a tag for theft, stolen vehicles, or warrants out on folks. We've got 2 up. He's asked for 8, and again, there's areas for adjustment in this as we move forward over the next couple of meetings. Training and travel, $10,000. Verizon Air Card, $16,800. That's for the car computers and cameras. 20 replacement portable radios and handheld mobiles we talked about earlier for $140,000. Staff-wise, he is requesting 1 part-time accreditation specialist for the department for $30,000. That's part-time. His priority number 2 is classification of one of his existing officers to a K-9 position. The officer's salary is covered. That job would be advertised within the department, and they would be interviewed for, and then the purchase of the animal and the supplies and training that go along with that is $20,000. So that reclass of an existing, and $20,000 for the dog, and incidentals that go along with that. Third priority is the narcotics and gang officer for CREEDMOOR. The salary, the benefits, and things that go along with that, that's $81,000. And possibly one additional SRO for Mount Energy if it is annexed, which would come along with another $75,000 school grant. So, I think the school system's in the process of discussing whether or not they want to pursue this and submitting a request to the city council about their interest in doing that. Fire protection.
Mike, before you go on, Mayor Pro Tem.
So the 7 ballistic vests, have we included one for the dog? This is not fun. I'm not kidding. I don't care where we get it. We will apply for grants for it if we have to. But we would, when we have a certified police officer for K-9,
Do we, does the amount of money that you requested cover them for housing the dog and vet visits and all this other kind of stuff that come with it?
It includes the $20,000 includes the purchase of the dog, the training, I think it's 6 to 8 weeks, I think, for the team learn the dog. That includes the kennel that would go to the officer's house to house the dog. A ballistic vest for the dog is not included in there. And there's been some discussion of it's not included in the vet.
So do we get insurance on this dog so that their medical expenses are covered? I don't know anything about it.
That is an option. That's not including it. That will be completely up to the city if we want to.
What about AEDs for the police car? I would like to see an AED in every police car since they drive them home. If there's a call while they're on their way home or on their way in, they could respond to it. Do we have AEDs in any police cars right now? How many do we have?
We do. We have one AED and they leave it here. So at shift change, they leave it, in the police department, and the incoming shift gets them to the
So one of the police officers would take it.
It's always, it's always ready for us.
Well, maybe if we can't do all of them right away, we could do some of them, at least half of them. And the rifles are $1,000 a piece, and the ammunition is $6,000. What am I missing?
Each rifle has an optic that goes on it, as well as a red dot optic.
Right.
Which is,
Does this include the brackets that have to be put in the car? Car has to be customized for the brackets.
brackets for the physical property, the new ones that we have to bracket.
Okay. That's all I got.
What kind of rifles are they?
It's a, yes, 5.56.
Okay. Any other questions? Thanks, sir.
Right, I will move on with fire protection.
Wait, hold on a minute. Mayor Pro Tem.
Mike, and Camille too, probably. Since Elders is going up from 12 to 14%, I know that the city takes the Elders amount, used to be 4% that we would put in a 401k. And then Elders went up to 8%, and I don't know if we started depositing 8% into 401k, but the policy was, whatever the state took out for your Elders retirement, we would deposit into the saving, 401k without matching for the employee. Where are we on, are we near, are we far, what is the percentage we deposit into 401k for employees now?
We don't have money on that. Is it a 5 or 6%?
Yes.
With or without a match, it's a 5%?
Yes.
Is it 6 for law enforcement?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's where it is, 6%.
But that's not what it's supposed to be. When I first started here, we were told that the 401k deposit was to offset the amount that the state was taking out for the Elders retirement. Anybody who's been here long enough, Karina told me that in a meeting, our first budget meeting.
I don't know about that, but 401k and Elders are two separate things.
Right, I
You make a
understand that.
separate, contribution to Elders. The 5 and 6% is pretty standard, like across any municipality that offers 401k, that percentage is pretty standard, what they offer. I'm not sure what,
So our 401k then will stay the same even though Elders goes up to 14%.
I think reach out to Karina to ask her if you got any good memory of that.
That's the way she explained it to me the first year I was here because I didn't understand why are we making contributions to 401k. And she said because the employees have no say in the Elders amount that comes out of their check. So we reimburse them that amount by putting it into a 401k. And at that time it was 4%.
well, so the employee contribution is 6%.
The employee themselves.
Elders contribution is 6% for employees.
Oh, okay, so then it's only 6%, so then it's fine. Okay, just wanted to make sure. I thought that employee's part was 14%. That's good to know.
Moving right along, we're gonna, let's see, fire protection. The fire protection service agreement increases by 63% for $177,558 from $227,729 to $401 with recent county reevaluation of property taxes. So our fire and rescue services agreement will be $401,837 plus the $49,750 letter payment for a total of $451,587 for the coming year. Public Works. Public Works has a $49,700 increase request. Part of it is a replacement public works vehicle, M4, which is the director's public works Steve Edwards vehicle. It's a larger size vehicle with side doors and equipment and stuff on it. $73,000. A replacement zero-turn mower, $13,600. One box and one push blade for the new track skid steer for $6,500. The bush cutter, which I mentioned earlier, for $7,600. A computer tablet for out of office and field use by a maintenance technician, $1,600. That is Amanda Hancock, who's out on the streets doing her job, so she'll have one available. Rental maintenance, increased $3,000 for additional mulching and planting to take over the 5707L landscaping project, and the Elm Street parking lot grade, the parking lot behind us, is estimated at $12,000 to grade and gravel and expand the parking in the rear of the building here, on Elm and Masonic and Senator. All right, I'm gonna move right on to community development. Increased $304,435. I have a request for a planner position with benefits, $111,000. Replacement vehicle for the CDO office, which, Jerry and all the guys over there use as needed. Then, of course, looking to a leasing agreement with Enterprise to maybe cut down some of that cost. 20% of increase on community development lease from Panera, where the offices are in right on the corner of Main and Masonic. Public Main Street parking lot, that's a new parking lot between the drugstore and the Masonic Lodge, $102,000 project. Grading, graveling, design, work's gotta be done over there. It's been, worked on and priced out by our city engineer. And also in there is the Lake Rogers Flood Study Stewardship and Survey for $55,000. This is one of the items that, as a match grant, or grant match, let me get that right, grant match, to focus on, to see if they can find some money to help us do that. So Mike has a meeting already set up next week with the folks there. The guy from Lynchburg, Virginia, who's the local USA guy. So, there's a meeting scheduled to start some conversations and introductions on that. Parks and Recreation.
Before you go on,
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Wilkins.
Mr. City Manager, we've done without a plan in the last 2 years, am I correct?
Last one year. This is the second year. Yes.
So why do we need to spend $111,000 now?
Like me to read the blurb for today?
Prepared? Yep, if you would like, yeah. Can you take any questions?
The planner position's primary purpose is to support the everyday departmental function of walk-in, email, and phone call inquiries, to provide timely customer service, and to be quickly responsive to all client needs. In order for the Community Development Department to perform the fully expected range of services, the return of the planner position, as it had been prior to fiscal year '24, is essential. By handling the daily predictable questions about zoning enforcement, site plan and subdivision review, zoning compliance permits, and other CREEDMOOR development ordinance questions, a planning professional empowers co-workers to delve deeply into their own job responsibilities. Without the necessary manpower for the most recent 18 months, the performance of the department as a whole has been affected while trying to compensate. Without the planner position, meetings at the UNERVA Path Forward Committee and Campo Technical Coordinating Committee, which are on-site and in-person meetings in Buckner and Cary respectively, are a challenge to attend regularly and be prepared to fully participate. Having a planner in place allows the department to function fully if there is sick or vacation days on the calendar. Furthermore, the workload has been increasing as we get closer to Seguasa's I-85 project completion. Projects have been approved and developers are beginning to inquire about CREEDMOOR in earnest. Preliminary and exempt plats, construction drawings, and final plats all have to be managed and reviewed as projects move toward construction. We have to show that they are capable of handling the growth. In order to do that, we have to train our staff accordingly. Lastly, the planner would also fill the void left in the order of succession necessary to maintain the institutional knowledge and provide for the long-term stability of the department. Succession planning is essential in a small department. There needs to be 3 levels of proficiency in order to maintain institutional knowledge and maintain expertise in unexpected staffing circumstances. We need the position in place.
Mr. Wilkins.
I heard and understood everything you said. I don't personally think we need the position. Mr. City Manager, pleasure of the board, I think it should be taken out of the budget. That's just, I seem to be in a minority tonight, so.
You said taken out.
Yes, sir. But, pleasure of the board.
Yes, sir.
And the salary for this planner would be how much?
111.
65,000 would be the take home. 111 would be the full cost, including benefits and pension.
That's not that far off.
$70,000.
No, it says 58, we were talking 61 for salary, not counting benefits.
I'm sure the board recalls me taking this out because it's set for a year and not been filled.
Right.
So we're going into our second year. They were close to filling it, but it wasn't enough funds there to do it, and it was just one of the adjustments that I made. The salary has been adjusted up from what, 60 to 65, whatever, to try to fill with that attraction, and, we're getting ready to grow, so, we've been kind of stalemated here the last year, so it may be another year, but, kind of where we are, anyway.
Mayor Pro Tem.
So, I absolutely understand where Commissioner Wilkins is coming from, because I pushed real hard last year not to fill this position, because I didn't see any need for it. But I know that in speaking with Mr. Frangos and Carl and Mr. Turner, the people walking in and interrupting the staff with stuff is constant. And Rebecca is really going beyond her administrative duties to try to help fill in those parts. So I could possibly see a planner at this point. I do understand that we're not going to grow, we're not going to do anything growth-wise, but I have received a lot of emails and text messages from developers that are asking me questions that I can't answer. I don't know the answers. Recently was involved in something with a developer and had to reach out to Mr. Frangos and drag him into the meeting so I can understand that too. I do see the need for someone else in that office because it is interrupting a lot. And that's all I've got to say. I know that we're not growing yet, but we are planning on it and things are coming up. So I did fight against it hard last year. I'm not going to fight against it hard this year, but I will go with whatever the board decides.
Mr. Gleason.
I just want to say that I agree with planning director's word.
Mr. Wilkins.
I would not be opposed to being in the budget for 25-26. I don't see the need for it in this year's budget.
Mr. Albright, anything you'd like to add?
I am one of the staff people that likes meeting, so I know how important it is to have that type of person in your office to help do those types of tasks, because I am important in my other job, just as well as this one. So I would be in favor of Mike, getting his needs met for his office.
Based on this city manager's consensus, let's leave it in there for right now.
Yeah, will do. Next item, Parks and Recreation. There's an increase of $153,807. Parks and Rec, that's for 2 replacement boats for Lake Rogers, $16,000. an upgrade to the bathrooms at Lake Rogers, new fixtures, lights, doors, painting, sinks, commode, those kind of things. It currently meets ADA, but it really needs a facelift. So those two bathrooms down there, $9,000. I've been asked for $8,000 for community center painting. Interior, exterior, is where it needs to be touched up and painted. We've been open since 21. Replacement Christmas tree, replacing the 2009 Christmas tree that's been about 15 years old. It's a new sectional tree. We've got budgeted in there $20,000. Of course, you could buy the summer for about 15 or 16, but that's the price probably you go into the year. System-wide recreation master plan, $75,000. That's the other item that I've asked Max Grant to focus on, so those two. The project that Mike has, the Lake Rogers project, grant match. I mentioned replacing the deck rails that overlook the Battle Roberts Field from the senior deck level. And I've also received an increase for a number of temporary service hours to spread out over the 5 temporary folks to cover all the events that happen down there. The 2024 fee and rate schedule is currently under review by both CEO and the Parks and Recreation Committee to see what adjustments might need to be done. So I know Mike is working on that since last week. I talked to Parks and Rec today. I've got a meeting with them again next Monday, talk about some adjustments in their fees. And the next item I want to jump to is the county service contributions.
Hold on just a second, Mike. Mayor Pro Tem.
So, last year, last budget, we approved 2 very fancy paddle boats. There was advertising for paddle boat rides constantly on Facebook, and the consensus was nobody's using them. So I am reluctant to purchase 2 more paddle boats when we're not even using the 2 that we have. I understand that 2 of them are old and decrepit and they should be replaced, but unless I see an increase of people using what we have, and then we get to the point where Dennis comes to us, that 2's just not enough, we need more. We don't have anybody working in concessions 24 hours or 24/7 down there. So there's no way to rent the paddle boats when there's nobody there to rent them when we only have certain hours. I understand the pros and the cons of not having a person in that concession stand. There's not that much going on. I don't know how much money we are losing or making down there at Lake Rogers. It seems that Lake Rogers was a great idea, and it was a lovely idea, except that we don't have staff to man it every day. And I was getting phone calls last year, there's nobody here, I need a fishing license, what do I do? It's Saturday, there's nobody at City Hall. Well, go to the rec department, go to the community center. Well, I'm just gonna go fish because there's nobody here that cares, so I'm just gonna fish without a license and they can send the police after me. I heard that a lot of times, and like I said, I understand the pros and the cons. To pay somebody to sit down there when nothing's happening is ridiculous, but not have anybody down there at all to rent out these items is also ridiculous. So I'm not in favor of buying 2 more paddle boats when the 2 brand new ones that we have were hardly used at all last year.
Mr. Wilkins.
I think if they all need to be replaced, let's replace them before somebody gets hurt in the old ones.
I would tend to agree with Commissioner Wilkins.
I mean, we're gonna have 4 brand new ones sitting down there not being used. That's ridiculous.
Well, hopefully they will be used.
We've got 2 of the really nice ones that are easy to paddle.
Right.
The other 6 are the hard to paddle foam boats that go out on the lake. 2 of those I have surplus because of the value. They got holes, they're taking on water, they're not sinking, but they're slowing down because they're taking on extra water. The increased hours that they're adding is to cover the seasonal and temporary employees that they have. I wish Dennis was here tonight to speak to that, but he's on sick leave because he's got a new baby.
Good for him.
He came about 2 weeks ago, so he's got a couple of weeks to help mom before he comes back, Monday, Tuesday week. 26.
So we can, since we're just getting a review, we can double check with Dennis when he gets
Yeah,
back.
yeah, but I was still leaning towards replacing them now.
Because I would be interested in hearing his input on that too.
Okay? You're ready, I'll go ahead to.
Please.
County contributions, that's the next sheet, Mark.
Oh, I'm sorry.
County contributions for '24 was $37,845. That went down $22,500 to only $7,700. Those items are family living balance free, from '24 was $1,000. It's the same request this year. CREEDMOOR Cemetery went from $4,000 to $4,200, up $200. Human Relations Committee, requested $375. They were not funding any last year because the city decided to start their own Martin Luther King celebration event here in Creedmoor for the southern end of the county. So that's why you probably won't see a recommendation coming from me for that reason, because I'm assuming we're gonna continue that. But that's what the board decision. Ramble County Search and Rescue, $2,000, same as last year. Ramble County Historical Society, $500, same as last year. There is no recommendation in here for the Granville County Veterans Affairs Committee, because the board gave $500 last year. And typically, we don't go out as a county and ask for this every year. The CREEDMOOR Veterans Organization that was where the monument was for 22,005. It's not in here, it's not a recurring item. So that's why that's the $22,500 decrease in this year's request for Dave.
Mr. Wilkins.
Mr. City Manager, since we have our own Martin Luther King again, it's gonna be recurring, so we're gonna pull this out, it's $375, okay, just wanna be clear on it.
We haven't, the city's had this for 2 years in a row.
Right.
And I'm assuming it's very successful, turnout rate.
Very good.
Continue doing that, and such as the board, if you want to send any money, north to.
I don't see the reason.
But,
I don't see the reason.
any questions before I step off and let Mr. Ames come to the podium? Yes, sir.
Commissioner Gleason.
Did we just do away with the $375 for the human raise, or no?
Yes.
They do a lot of things other than the breakfast. And I'm,
Actually, I don't know that they do, because everything
I'm on it.
because everything I only hear from them is when they, do the Martin Luther
Well, they
King
do
Road.
things with buildings, they do things with rentals, they do work with people that are, they do many more things than just have a breakfast.
Well, where are they getting the other funds from, the county?
From the county and other groups that do donate to the,
Have they requested the money?
Yes, sir, I got a request from the county manager. Drew Cummings, probably because Drew's brand new and just jumping into the conversation. I'll be glad to read you the letter from Drew. To whom it may concern CREEDMOOR, Granville County was created as a political subdivision of the state of North Carolina. As such, Granville County is qualified to receive deductible contributions made solely for public purposes. Donations and allocations made to the Granville County Human Relations Commission or any programs administered by this qualify as a public purpose donation. Granville County, on behalf of the Granville County Human Relations Commission, respectfully request your consideration of this funding. Funds received by Granville County on behalf of the Granville County Human Relations Commission are incorporated within the county's general fund. Your grant donation of $350 in 2023 helped us tremendously with awarding 7 Granville County students certificates and monetary awards for their participation in the HRC Daniel Dr. Martin Luther King Essay Contest. It is the Commission's hope to bring back the community breakfast that is usually given along with the contest. A copy of the county's most recent audit can be found online under the Finance Department. Thank you for your interest and support for the company.
Commissioner Wilkins.
I want to reiterate, I think that $375 could be better spent on our programs here in the city of Creedmoor.
I'm sorry.
I think the $375 can be better spent in the city of Creedmoor.
I tend to go that direction too. And the reason is I support Human Relations Commission, I do. But usually what the money we give them goes for the breakfast and some other things. But now we're spending that amount of money plus some on having breakfast here. And it makes me also a little uncomfortable that last year they encouraged us to have the breakfast. And this year they're in discussions to have one right on top of it.
Our event this year is probably going to increase, I believe, what I remember, $1,000 to $1,200 for CREEDMOOR. Because it's successful, we get a tremendous amount of turnout.
Mm-hmm.
So we're providing meals for all those folks here.
And we're the only ones that do that for Martin Luther King in the southern end of the county. Mayor Pro Tem.
So after we had the Martin Luther King breakfast here, we got a little bit of feedback from some county people that our breakfast was conflicting with the Human Relations Committee. Matter of fact, it was mentioned at the retreat. Could we make sure that we coordinate better? The reason we started doing breakfast here was because Human Relations had stopped doing the breakfast, right? And they were having a service, and our breakfast ended last year at 10, and their service started at 11, and this year, they started at 10, and our breakfast ended at 10. So if they're we don't want to be in conflict with any other municipality or any other group that's doing this. If we're gonna tear county commissioners apart by trying to, which one do I go to? I don't want to insult these people, and I don't want to insult those people. So I think that if it's going to cause friction, I absolutely agree with Commissioner Wilkins. If our breakfast is going to cost us more money, then we should use our money here for that. And if they do more than just the breakfast, I'm not aware of the other programs that they sponsor, and I guess I'll start to pay a little bit more attention so I'm better informed the next time.
Well, and from what I heard, the most complaints we got were from commissioners and elected officials. In other words, the people we're really trying to have it for had no problem with us doing it here. And elected officials can go where they feel like it's best for them. And I think that has to weigh into what we do. Commissioner Wilkins, did you have anything else?
I just think Mr. City Manager has a consensus. I'm going to take it out.
Okay.
All right. The next item, Mr. Lee Plains Finance Director is going to come up and talk to the board about revenues, expenditures comparison, and the projected fund balance for stormwater and power bill funds.
Okay, so first I'm gonna start off with a couple of your items on what City Manager has already discussed as far as the numbers wise. But as far as the revenues, I provided you with two figures. One at our current tax rate, what the revenues would be, estimated would be. You see $7,392,183, that's at 61.5%. That is what it is currently. The revenue neutral tax rate, that I calculated, due to the rebound is 36.4%. So you see a good drop there, but as stated in the earlier meetings where you got to publicize that revenue neutral rate that generates that same amount of revenue as pre-rebound, that calculation came to 36.4. And then that neutral rate as well is already a built-in annual growth in that number.
Mayor Pro Tem.
So I thought that revenue neutral tax rate was the tax rate that would give us the same tax value as what we had before. This is about $1,500 less, $1.5 million less.
It generates the same revenue as if the county did not have a rebound. So with the new tax base that came about due to the rebound, which tax base increased for the city, so So therefore, at the current tax rate that you currently have, your ad valorem tax revenue would therefore go up. So where general statute says you have to calculate that revenue neutral tax rate that generates that same amount of revenue at what the tax base was pre-revow. So that amount of revenue that we were generating before the revow occurred, that's what that new tax rate is. So of course it's going to go down because tax base went up. So to generate that same amount of revenue as pre-revow, your neutral rate is going to come down to generate that number.
But we won't be getting the same amount of revenue we were getting before, and that's what the purpose was, to keep it.
You're not going to generate the same amount of revenue as before, because already the revenue neutral tax rate has a built-in year of annual growth. But this is not really, you all, throughout this budget process, can adopt whatever tax rate you feel will best support the city and the ongoing operations that's needed for going forward to accommodate for the inflation that has happened in that 8-year span since the last rebound.
So we could set the tax rate to bring it back up to the 7.3 million revenue that we were getting.
You would then therefore keep at your current tax rate that you have now.
Yep.
61.5%.
Huh? We would have to keep the same rate. It's only 1.5 million from 36.4 to 61.5.
So at your current tax rate,
Yep.
61.5%. That's what the city's tax rate is currently.
Right.
If the city was to keep that same tax rate
With the new evaluations.
new tax base that you have, of course, you're going to generate way more revenue.
Right.
Because your tax rate is staying the same, but your tax base has gone up. But you're going to generate that extra ad valorem taxes because you're keeping the rate the same. You're not making an adjustment to kind of range your tax. Let's take it to a point of your tax bill.
Okay.
So let's say your tax bill is $2,000.
Okay.
Currently before there was rebound.
Right.
So with the rebound now, we've seen that the city of CREEDMOOR's tax effective value went up 80%.
Okay.
Therefore, your tax bill will go up 80% if you keep it at the same tax
Rate. Yeah.
So, general statute says we have to calculate that revenue neutral tax rate that will generate the same tax bill.
$2,000.
At $2,000 that it was before the rebound. So therefore, you have to drop the tax rate
Right.
to get that same tax bill.
Mr. Wilkins.
My question is, and I'm confused, what does the tax rate need to be to generate the $7,392,000?
What tax rate you need, that's 61.5%.
Not at the eval, with the new eval.
That 7.3 million is your ad valorem, but plus all the other revenue the city has that's included in that.
Pardon me your question. What was our revenue this year? Dollars.
The revenue this year, so the adopted budget was the 5.5 million. So the ad valorem,
That's why I think we were very pro tem confused. So we generated 5.5 million last year.
total, include ad valorem and every other revenue.
Much better.
Gotcha. So the estimated ad valorem property taxes for the current year that we're in was budgeted at, 2.2 million. So with the current tax rate, with the new revised tax base, the property tax revenue is 4 million. So to generate, so when I calculated the revenue neutral tax rate, that generates similar to where we are at in this current year, plus 1 year of growth, that number is 2.3 million in property tax.
Let me ask you this, based on our proposed budget, okay? And we had taken into account the revaluation. what would our tax rate need to be to cover the budget that we are looking at potentially?
So my approach to this I calculated a recommended what would be if the city was to adopt the budget today with every request that's presented. My thought process has always been to make sure that you're able to support ongoing your daily operational day-to-day activities, and that your capital will be the one-time expenses that you feel more comfortable with budgeting fund balance for. So my recommended at this time would be a 4-cent increase on top of the 36.4. So that brings it to 40.4.
That helps me out if I can see real numbers.
But of course, there's one that, once it's in the manager and you all, we go through the budget and make the necessary cuts and make the necessary additions, I can better get a number later on when we're ready to present that recommended budget to you all for, that the public will be able to then therefore have that public hearing on. I'll be able to give you a better understanding.
Well, this gives me kind of a center point to go by. Mr. Wilkins, will you finish? Mayor Pro Tem.
So, Lee, will this give us money to put away for the future projects that we have in the CIP? Because right now, the budget we had, we were way high, 110% over our general fund, and then we brought it down. And now if we go to 40.4, we will have money in a reserve fund to use for some of the capital improvement projects.
Yes, my recommended, so the recommended tax rate I'm going to give you is to be able to support like your salaries, all the operational costs, utilities, everything, therefore, and then you will be able to then therefore plan for those capital projects, because then therefore you're knowing that this is how much fund balance I have to appropriate for the next year for these capital projects. But the tax rate I'm going to give you is able to support.
Okay, because the previous financial director kept saying, if we don't do something with our taxes, we were gonna run out of money, start having a deficit in 5 years, and I'm trying to absolutely avoid that.
So based on the projection, when you do the 5-year projection, it shows before the rebound that there was a decrease each year because the city tax rate hadn't been adjusted, and of course everything went up. So the supporting revenues for those costs, it showed us this decision each year because we had capital that we had to include, and then ongoing expenses. Our tax revenues wasn't supporting all of the ongoing expenses that we had.
And would this account for the money for the fire department, which went up 200 and some thousand? Okay. Mr. Gleason, just hit that button and I'll see easier, but that's all right. Go ahead, I got you.
I don't want to say this out loud,
But he's going to.
but going from 61.5 at our previous eval, and now going to 40.4 or 40
40.4.
is like a 25% tax increase.
No.
If you cut it in half, it would be 30. Basically 30.5. Now you're gonna make it 40.4. That's 25%.
But the tax increase?
Increase.
You're gonna cut the taxes, but you're increasing the taxes.
You're gonna increase the tax that I pay now by about 25%, which is, I'm not screaming about it, but if you cut the tax rate in half, tell me if I'm wrong here. I paid 61 cents last year. My house doubled in the valuation. Now I'm gonna pay not half of the 61, which would be 30.5, I'm gonna pay 40.4. Now you're telling me that's not 25% more?
I'm not gonna say it's 25% more, so your tax bill, if we were to adopt the revenue neutral tax rate, your tax bill is gonna go up regardless, because
I agree with that, but the difference between 36.4 and 40 is,
it's only 4 cents. So, your tax bill will only be reflected by that 4 cents. So whatever your assessed value of your home is, you will multiply by whatever the recommended tax
Right.
rate is, or you can do it at the revenue neutral tax rate, which will only increase your tax bill by a smaller portion, like I said, y'all depending on what your tax bill is. So then, if it goes up 4 cents, you won't see that drastic increase in your tax bill, you'll just see a slight increase by that 4 cents.
all right,
And I can't really give you more, I don't know that your assessed value of your home.
well, say it says value of my home is $400,000.
Mm-hmm.
And what I paid last year was based on 200,000 at 61 cents. Now I'm gonna have 400,000 based at 40 cents. That's gonna generate a lot more money.
Yeah, so it's going to increase, 4 cents per $100 of evaluation.
Well, then I'm missing something. I don't understand that.
That's the basis of the tax rate is, your tax rate is 61.5 cents per $100 of assessed value.
Correct.
So if we would adopt the, revenue neutral rate, we go up 4 cents, therefore your tax bill will only go up 4 cents per $100 of your.
We moved to 40, excuse me, we moved to 40.4. I believe Mr. Gleason is correct. What we go,
I have to sit down and do the calculation.
Just basic math.
Yes.
Basic math says if I was paying 61 on 200,000, and now I'm gonna pay 40 on 400,000, I'm gonna pay over 20% more tax.
I can sit down and do the calculation.
Well, but you're going up, your house is worth more.
Well, I wouldn't even argue that 25% increase. I come where they did that every other year, 25%. But that is gonna hit home to a lot of people whose houses really went up. I think some people's houses went up 120% in assessed value.
Mine went up 50%.
Mine didn't go up 100% either, it went 89%.
The general tax, city assessed value went up
Okay.
7.8.
Can you give like a chart, how much I would have put 200,000,
Yes, I can do some calculations for you.
And just send it out.
Yes.
Any other questions? Okay, Commissioner Albright.
So would you suggest that we do like small increases in taxes like yearly or every other year just to keep ahead of falling into like a pitfall per se, that we get to where we've, you have $9,000 budget or $9 million budget, and then, you're spending $3 million of it, and then you're not bringing any revenue in because you're continuously spending it and your pot gets smaller and smaller, and then all of a sudden you have this board that has to you have 6%, you have to raise taxes because now all of a sudden you don't have any money in your pot.
And of course, all of us know that Q1 spending is ridiculous, but there has been no room for growth due to the war and sewer.
And it's gonna come really
So
fast.
that time is gonna come, so you're gonna see a change when those developments and all of those things start to happen. So then therefore you start having that additional revenue. But what I would suggest is in the past to accommodate when you start seeing those inflation begin to rise and the market and all of those things begin to skyrocket up, I would address the tax rate a little earlier and have to adjust.
I know, it's gonna be a good, 5 years before it starts to get rocking. And then you have to get people in those homes and things like that. But I don't wanna be behind.
Right.
You know,
Right now is a good time to address it and what we have to address it every year.
Yeah, I wish we had done something. Commissioner Gleason.
again, this shows me one thing, that growth is needed.
So, and until we get to that point of expansion and being able to grow, it probably would be good for us to address it every other year until that growth to see where we stand and what projects do we need to address and how is our tax rate being able to support like that ongoing cost that we have to pay each and every year. So it would be a good idea to take a look at it every year, but right now is the best time to address it, to make sure that you're able to capture it all at one time. And going forward, you can see the need if we need to.
Any other questions? I'm sorry. Commissioner Wilkins.
And Lee, to piggyback on what you just said, can you also on that chart look at what 41 cents would look like versus 40.4, or both of those?
Like I said, this number is going to change.
Right. Just give us a working idea.
Right, yeah, this is just showing what it is other now, at the board decides to stop the budget, give every department what they request.
All right, sir.
So we're gonna move on just to the expenditures, of course, having more slides. Like already, city manager addressed, the total requested expenditures sitting at 6.5 million, so at the current tax rate, you see that you have that, surplus of revenue of 797, and but in the revenue neutral tax rate, you see the gap, of 875. The FY 24 budget was adopted at 5.5 million, so the requested budget is at 1,041,267, more than the adopted budget. So this slide just shows, like as I stated, if the board was to adopt the budget today, available fund balance at June 30th is at 8.5 million. The board has amended the budget so far 855,000. And you all recently adopted made a change to your fund balance policy. So 70% of general fund FY 25 expenditures you have on hand at 4.6 million, which gives you 30% for available projects at 3.8 million for the upcoming fiscal year. Like I said, that number is based on actual requested numbers so far, but that will change once we get to our adopted numbers. We're going to go to the next slide.
Mayor Pro Tem.
So, Lee, explain to me the interest earnings for this year. We have actual 348,312, which is 98,000 higher than we had originally budgeted for. So that is like extra income that we've gotten this year we didn't plan on. So when we're talking about a moving fund balance of $1 million, $98,000 is a pretty good chunk of that money. Am I right? Am I following this right? I mean, it's not a big chunk of money, but it is, $350,000 we earned this year in interest income.
So, of course, at the end of the fiscal year, that's going to play into your, if we add to the fund balance or take money from the fund balance. It all depends on where we end at the end of the year for expenditures and revenues. We can very well at the end when we're doing stimulus, instead of moving fund balance, appropriate that additional sales tax money that's received.
Instead of the fund balance.
Instead of fund balance.
Okay, thanks.
The next slide is to briefly talk about stormwater. I know Jennifer's going to have a conversation with you all shortly. But as of today, the estimated FY 25 revenues is at 355,000. Of course, that number can change if the board decides to do a fee rate increase next year. So if you look at the FY twenty-five expenditures requested, we're at $455,566. Admin expanding being $289,454, repairs and improvements $145,412, service payments $20,700, which leaves a gap of $100,566. On my next slide, the fund balance at June 30th, 2023 was $493,145. As of today, the board has adopted and amended the budget $439,763 of stormwater fund balance, which leaves the available fund balance to appropriate in FY twenty-five only at $53,382. So that kind of shows you where we stand with stormwater and how we're kind of working on the bare minimum to provide any stormwater project that we have for the upcoming year. Right now, we can't take on any more projects unless we fund it with general fund dollars. And a big portion of that, and I don't want to take too much of it. A big portion of that is the personnel cost that is charged to stormwater for community development and public works for the work that they do in stormwater. So that, I just wanted to provide you all with that number so you can get a better view of where we at, so you can make a sound decision on for the rate increase and how you all want to proceed. Next, we want to go to power bill.
Hold on, anybody have any questions? All right, thank you, just thought I'd double check.
Yes, sir. Power bill estimated revenues, $186,000. The requested thus far for expenditures was $351,000, appropriating $165,000 of fund balance, and that is only all capital projects that's in your CRP, which consists of the sidewalk, gap, right-of-way acquisition, and the engineering and design cost for the sidewalks. Alright, this is the last slide, just some things that are pending that, some we would need you all guidance on or to be answered. As City Manager stated earlier, the increase to property and casualty is still unknown. Currently what we have budgeted is what we currently spent in this year. Those numbers normally, they come late in the fiscal year, so a lot of times we have already adopted the budget, but they don't get too far off than what we budgeted. COLA, right now there's no COLA in there for the city. 1% generates $34,000. Not generates, is $34,000. We would need your decision for the stormwater fee increase. A tax rate, as we discussed earlier, as we go later on, and once we see, after we make the necessary cuts and adjustments, 1 cent generates $66,588, and your direction for the organizational fund request, which I believe you all addressed earlier. I believe that is all that I have in the presentation.
Mayor Pro Tem.
So the COLA wasn't included in here. Were merits included in any of this?
Yes, merit is included.
Merit is, what percentages are we talking about from?
Budget on, so the merit rate hasn't changed, so we budget at the average to 2%, across the board. Of course, some people might get below, some might get higher, but we just budget at that little number, average of what we believe employees will receive.
I thought we did merit at 3.
No, that's your max. 2.5, I'm sorry, 2.5, that's your max, not 3.
Okay. Everybody knew that number real fast.
Anything else? Mr. Gleason.
So the 1 cent increase 66,000, that's on the new evaluation.
Yes. Briefly, yeah, I believe it was at 37,000.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. All right, we move on to 5C, Stormwater Fee Rate Study. Jennifer, I believe that is you. If you'll identify yourself when you get in the company and all that stuff.
Absolutely. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Jennifer Mansis. I work with Southwell Financial Consultant. I was before this body a month or so ago on February 10th, as you all were partaking in your strategic planning workshop, and I was speaking to you at that time about the city's stormwater program and the need to increase the stormwater fee to sufficiently fund that program. The increase I brought to you at that time was significant. And so I'm back today with a few alternatives for your consideration as part of this overall budgeting process.
You can, if you'd like, you can do the, is it on? There's a button right on the side.
Yes. All right, we talked about this, last time I was up here, but I'll sort of dive into some of the details, since a number of details have been presented this evening about the various city functions. So just as a reminder, the stormwater program activities are wide-ranging and pretty comprehensive. Some of them are on the ground, very visible, kind of obvious stormwater management activities like maintenance of your drainage system, street sweeping, leaf and brush collection, and repairs and replacement of key infrastructure. You've got a few good pictures in a slide or two. Some of them are somewhat more behind the scenes, but certainly critical from a day-to-day kind of water quality and quality of life perspective. So illicit discharge detection and elimination, following up on citizen concerns or complaints about drainage or water quality or things they're seeing that look suspect. The community development and public works teams address each and every one of the complaints that come through with the stormwater hotlines that they run. And then construction site monitoring. I think this is worth highlighting because it represents enhanced oversight of erosion and sediment control concerns on construction sites. That should be a state function, but the state is spread quite thin in that area, and so it is something that your city staff are taking on to just ensure that those construction sites don't become a nuisance from a water quality perspective. And then finally, there are some elements of the program that are tied to water quality regulations and compliance and sort of the longer term health of your water bodies. And those relate to fall rule compliance for new and existing development, the investment that the city makes annually to SIGWASA's I-85 project, insofar as it reduces sanitary sewer overflows and improves water quality generally. That is an investment that relates back to the false rules and the requirements that those rules have on the city. And then other activities that have to do with compliance with your municipal separate storm sewer system MS4 permit. So the stormwater hotline that I mentioned is kind of one of those activities, educating the public, post-construction stormwater control measure oversight, and making sure that those remain in good operation and that sort of thing are all kind of wrapped up in those activities. As our membership to a few organizations, the UNRDA just mentioned this evening, so a watershed organization that really furthers the kind of water quality goals of the region and has a strong role in limiting the financial impact of regulations and finding kind of regulatory options that can both improve water quality and are financially feasible or more feasible than some alternatives. The Stormwater Association of North Carolina is obviously a North Carolina focused group on kind of stormwater rules and guidance for municipalities. And then the Clean Water Education Partnership is a resource for some of those, and that's for kind of outreach requirements. And then program management, just development reviews and overall administration to manage those components and those processes. All right. Mr. Singh gave a kind of teaser for this, I think, but I just want to highlight that it takes some significant staff power to kind of run those programs and do those things. And so these are the staff within community development and public works that have a portion of their time allocated to the stormwater program, so doing those activities that I just ran through. It's a good chunk of half of Mr. Frangos' time, 90% of Mr. Barclay's time, 50% of Ms. Middleton's time, and a portion of Mr. Siebert's time, and then a quarter of most folks' time in public works, with 15% for Mr. Edwards. All right, just a few pictures which are meant to kind of demonstrate the impact, the importance of the stormwater program in the city. So we have the new inlets and the kind of curb work that was done over at the volunteer fire department, and a new pipe being put in at the Lopez. Thank you. So feel my time, probably in a minute. These are big investments that the program made, or the city made, over the last couple of years. We don't have any major capital investments in our kind of future projections, but we do have some money set aside to maintain and do capital repair and rehab on your existing assets to sort of prolong their life and really keep the system in good repair. All right. I would like to note, for the purpose of this slide and sort of in comparison with what was just presented, this is not exactly your budget. These are sort of projections from past years of spending on stormwater activities and projections of what that might look like for FY25. As you go through this budgeting process, these numbers can be refined, and of course, the revenue that's generated from the stormwater fee will offset whatever they end up totaling. So I just want to point that out in case anyone has sort of immediate questions that this number doesn't really ring a bell. For scale, I've just included some round numbers here. So kind of the system maintenance category of costs, about $285,000 in FY25, kind of assuming that projection. Program management, $182,000. That's the community development staff and their activities. Asset renewal, this is something that we sort of talked about programming into the cost many months ago. That's really that ongoing renewal of your infrastructure in place of achieving a big capital project every once in a while. And then those regulatory compliance costs and billing and collection costs to manage the stormwater fees and the costs associated with administering that. Right. I mentioned at the beginning, I have three sort of new rate alternatives for your consideration today. We're sort of at the beginning of this budget process, so, I will talk through these and read them with you for consideration and to provide guidance, as we move forward. So the first option is a one-year increase. This is not exactly what I presented last time. Last time I talked about a rate that could be held steady for a few years. This is a little bit shy of that. This is just to get you to a revenue sufficient place in 1 year. And then, if you were to sort of keep up with costs into the future, those would be much more modest increases year over year. Under this scenario, I won't go into all of the kind of rate components because we did that last time, but under this scenario, a typical single-family residential property would see their fee change from $107 as it was this past year to $192. That's about an 80% increase. The next alternative is a 3-year phase-in, so that sort of blunts the impact in this next year, but it does require that the gap be filled by general fund revenue or fund balance. And as we noted, there's not much of a fund balance in the stormwater fund at the moment. And then sort of somewhat more significant increases over the 3-year period to get to a revenue sufficient point by FY27. That scenario would see rates changing from $107 to $139 in the next year, which is a 30% increase. And last but not least, the 5-year increase option. So same thing, just spread out over an even longer period of time. That would see rates changing from $107 to $127, which is a 19% increase. And you would have, of course, more years where you're not sort of fully funding the stormwater program with this fee, so there would be a gap to fill there. All right, so I want to kind of summarize these in one place just for comparison here. I've got sort of a brief description of the scenario, what the fee would be for FY25 if you chose to go with one of these options. For the 3 and the revenue, of course, under these alternatives, for the 3 and 5-year options, there is, of course, a deficit in FY25. There are also deficits in future years. I just want to highlight the year that you're sort of currently under consideration. And then note again that the stormwater fund itself is nearly depleted by the end of this year, so any deficit would rely on the general fund transfer.
Excuse me just a minute. Mr. Wilkins.
So Jennifer, so I'm clear, next year we went to 192. Annual normal household would increase $85. 107, 192. And it would be no tap into the general fund if we did that. No need to withdraw anything from the general fund. Anything else we would begin to take from the general fund. Thank you.
Does this take into account in the years 3, 4, and 5, that's kind of when we're expecting our growth to hit?
This does take into account some moderate growth over every year. It doesn't have a big jump kind of price ranges years 3 through 5. I think that would throw you at the discretion of this body 2 through 4 years from now and of course through the sort of financial budgeting process and planning process, think about the degree of growth and how much of the gap that fills. But for FY25, I think I've heard that we're kind of modest growth, I should say, for this upcoming year.
Right. Yeah, there is, but I think we're looking at major growth in about 5 years. So.
Yeah.
Commissioner Gleason.
This is all good, in the fact that it shows exact figures and these are strictly homeowners, the single-family residence on a certain size lot. How's it gonna affect the church down the street?
The church and all of the other properties in CREEDMOOR will see increases as well. Slide or two, let's get on the slide that increases. As kind of a reminder from our last time I was here, there are three components to the fee: the fixed portion, the gross area, to the lot size portion, and the impervious area portion. They're all calculated somewhat separately, and they all contribute to an individual property's overall fee. So the impact is not uniform across every property in the city, but certainly as the impervious area and the gross area rates rise, the churches and everyone else is going to
Because this,
as well.
you not only raise the homeowner's fee, the school taxes, because of the size of the school, the church, it's gonna raise other costs to these same individuals because you pay that cost. So, again, it is what it is. That's about what it is. And it's just a shame that we gotta bite this bullet in the same year that we're gonna be biting up. But it's just across the board. I remember when this fee first started, and we made it a fee, not a tax. And there was a good reason for that, because then these other institutions didn't pay tax, helped contribute. But that was that caused a big ooh-la-la. So I just wanted, in an open meeting, we're just not talking about raising the home individual to 197. We're talking about if it's the same percentage of increase. That's it.
Mayor Pro Tem.
So, your presentation's great, but I'm a Ref Telus fan, you know that. So, I don't know if you're gonna answer this or Mike's gonna answer this, but the ditches that are in front of our homes that flow into our pond or wherever in the world they flow into, that's stormwater. Okay, I have heard from many neighbors, including this neighbor, nobody takes care of those ditches except me. So why are we talking about stormwater maintenance when the only people that maintain those stormwater ditches is me? My ditch is below the pipe.
You were biting
So
at the bit, Mr. Franco.
So every property owner is responsible for maintaining their park strip, which is the area in your front yard between the edge of the pavement and your private property. That's mowing it, raking it, keeping biomass and debris out of it. But the minute that ditch collapses, fills in, or your culvert pipe gets clogged, that's when you call Public Works. And Public Works comes out there and actually scrapes out the ditch, does much more than you would do with your mower or your handheld rig. So there's a difference between weekly maintenance of your park strip and the kind of maintenance that Public Works would do that actually fix the ditch.
So my ditch is deeper than the pipe. The ditch is here, the pipe is here. So the water doesn't go in the ditch. It just absorbs into the ground after as many days as it takes for it to absorb into the ground. So it wasn't done properly the first time. Is that something I would call the city for?
Yes, because they could fix that, right? They could reshape the ditch so that the bottom of the ditch does match the bottom of the culvert pipe. It should flow.
So you change the grade?
Not that they changed the grade, but they reshaped the ditch.
Oh, wider, got it.
Raise the bottom a little bit.
Make it wider.
Straight some down from the side and raise the bottom so that the water can move.
All right, don't go away. Why is Carl responsible for 90% of the stormwater work when we didn't have an engineer until Carl got here?
Carl was funded with the stormwater piece
Right.
last year when his position was new. That was the way that we managed the position.
So 90% of the storm, his salary comes from stormwater?
That's correct. And the other 10% is from housing.
Um,
None of Carl's positions actually came from general fund.
Okay, and wait a minute, we got another one on another page here. It says administration, billing and collections. The administration, billing and collections is done out of the Granville County Tax Office.
And we pay them for that.
You pay them $11,000 a year to do that?
Oh, yeah. Right, Jim?
I think a portion of I know a portion of the Rafael contract is in that category as well, because we support with the annual bill file development. So not all of that goes directly to the county, but we work with county on that, and they do the billing.
Which would lead me to the question of, so some of the stormwater money that we spent this year went to Raftellus for the study?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I think that's all I got. I'm flipping my pages here. I think that's all I got.
Mr. Wilkins?
I concur with Commissioner Gleason. It's a shame we have to do this in the same year, but I don't see any other way to do it than to go with the, $85 increase to $182.
Which one do we like, the 1 to 3 or the 5?
Next year, one year.
Yeah, just the 1 year.
Then we'll look at it again after that.
Yeah, Lee scared me when it said left $53,000 in funds.
Good job, Rick.
Is there any other questions for Jennifer?
Jennifer, we're sorry we were so rough on you at the retreat, but the numbers, between the tax increase and this increase, it's a lot of money. And we're trying not to kill our citizens.
Jennifer, as always, thank you for all you do for us, and we appreciate you coming tonight.
Thank you, Jennifer.
All right, before we go into closed session, is there anything else that needs to be brought before the board? Commissioner Wilkins?
Yes, sir, I don't want to be repetitive, but again, Mr. Frankos, please don't take this personally. I still do not see the need for a planner for this year's budget effective this July. With 3 to 5 years out on water infrastructure, I think it's the position that should go into the 25-26 budget, not this year.
Anything down here? All right, at this time, I'll introduce or entertain a
Make a
motion.
motion, we go into closed session.
Eventually, I was gonna get it out. Motion made by Commissioner Gleason.
For
to
personnel.
Go into closed session for personnel. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries 4-0.
You have one taxpayer in the room, and when you saw that,